Good morning, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Carlos Phillips, President and CEO of the Greenville Chamber. We host these Community Matters discussions the second and fourth Tuesday of each month to connect you with local, state, and national leaders. You can find past recordings as well as the upcoming Community Matters schedule at www.greenvillechamber.org. Want to ask all attendees to leave your phones and turn off your cameras. And then also, we do want this to be an interactive discussion, so please submit your questions through the chat feature, and we'll try our best to answer as many of your questions as possible in the time allotted. Today, we're speaking with Dr. Burke Royster. Dr. Royster is superintendent of Greenville County Schools. Dr. Royster's tenure as superintendent has been marked by significant advances in student achievement, with a particular focus on improving the district's graduation rate and ensuring that students are college and career ready. In a nod to the progress achieved under his direction, Dr. Royster was named 2018 Superintendent of the Year by the South Carolina Association of School Administrators and the South Carolina Association of Athletic Directors. Welcome, Dr. Royster, and thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, and thank you, Carlos. It's particularly a privilege to be part of this series of presentations sponsored by the Chamber, not just as Superintendent of Schools and be able to talk some about Greenville County Schools this morning, but also as a member of the Chamber. We are very pleased to be able to have a direct part in sharing the story of Greenville County Schools. And I know a lot of the interest right now is around COVID and how that affects our environment and what we might be doing. And we'll certainly get to that in just a few minutes. But I don't want us to lose sight of our central mission. And you referenced that, and that's to ensure that all of our students graduate. So we're working on graduation, but we're working on it in a way that we want to be certain that we're preparing our graduates for the next phase and for the rest of their life. And so we talk about graduation, we talk about graduation plus. And you see that on the slide in front of you, the opening slide. It's a high school diploma, it's college credit, it's industry certification. The basic is to the left. We certainly want everybody to get a high school diploma to earn that diploma, but we want them to leave with either college credit or industry certification or both. And we'll talk a little bit more about the progress we've made on that in just a few minutes. But I think our next slide begins a little bit of background on who we are. We are the 46th largest school district in the country. We're the largest school district in South Carolina, and we are almost twice the size of the second largest school district. In 2021, we had 74,341 students. We are on track as of this week to approach 76,000 this year. We have approximately 10,000 employees, nearly 6,000 of whom are teachers. And you see there the high percentage of those teachers that are nationally board certified. You also hear a lot of discussion about teacher turnover and retention. And you'll see there that our turnover rate is 8.4%. From last year. We don't yet have this year's full turnover rate, compared to 10.8% in 18-19, and compared to the state rate for the same year of 12.6%. You see there how many meals that we serve each day. You see also that we are governed by a 12-member elected school board representing every geographic area of Greenville County Schools, which crosses the boundaries of Greenville County. We serve nearly 30 square miles of northern Lawrence County, from which we have about 1,000 of our students. We also serve very small sections of Anderson County and a little portion of Spartanburg County. Our students that we serve speak 64 languages other than English as their first language. Nearly 16% of our students choose, or maybe more accurately, their parents choose for them, to attend a school other than the one to which they are zoned. And we believe that fits well into our belief that we need to have individual opportunities available for each child that best fits their needs, their interests, and their future plans. We have about 28,000 members of the PTA. As we move to the next slide, we seem to have gotten, there we go. We have 106 facilities, 82 of which were newly constructed or renovated since 2003. We have responsibility for maintaining more than 12.3 million square feet of occupied space, 3,000 acres of grounds. So as you all kind of hear those numbers, think about the effort it takes you to maintain your home and your yard. You'll have some kind of idea of the kind of effort our folks have to undertake to maintain all that. As I mentioned before, our boundaries extend beyond the boundaries of the county, but the district itself covers 800 square miles. You see a reference there to our two newest facilities, including our newest high school, Fountain Inn High, which is opening this fall. Our buses travel 40,000 miles a day. Those are the yellow buses you see on the road, not including all activity trips, sports trips. That's where this is just students to and from school. As we move to the next slide, see a little bit about our population. About a little over 51% male, I'd have 49% female. You see our breakdown by race and ethnicity. And you see the percentage of our students that are provided special education services. I think one of the most compelling numbers you see in this, though, which is a surprise sometimes to a lot of people, almost 60% of our pupils are in poverty. Now, this is a little different statistic from free and reduced lunch. That's about 50%. Pupils in poverty counts any student whose family is receiving some sort of aid or assistance, whether that be SNAP or other benefit programs. Not necessarily the picture a lot of people have of Greenville if they pass through downtown or they're coming here for meeting or vacation, or even a lot of our residents who sort of stay within their neighborhood, within their work circle, and within their circle of friends. So sometimes that's a little bit of an eye-opening statistic for people.
Dr. Royster, if I could interrupt you there for just a moment.
Sir.
That is a real eye-opening stat there. What challenges does that present for the district? What challenges does that present for the district?
You know, really kind of succinctly, the single greatest challenge that presents is the single biggest indicator of student success in school. If you don't know anything else other than the poverty level of a student, or particularly a group of students in a school, that is the single best predictor of their academic success. So inherent in that, if it's the single best predictor, that means that's obviously the group that you have to do the most work with and for to help them overcome the barriers of poverty, either to go through them, around them, over them, whatever it takes to get them past the barriers. Just like the statistic of, you know, there's like a difference of 1 million words that have been heard by a student entering school coming from a background of poverty versus one who comes from a background of, we don't want to say wealth, because that's not the case. It's not necessarily of wealth, but a background that is not one of poverty. It's almost 1 million words difference between the words they have heard from birth to the time they enter school. So as you think about reading being fundamental and foundational to everything everything that we do academically, that is a great challenge. And we believe we have made certainly some progress in those areas. So obviously, all the efforts we put forth require support from our community And that kind of gets us to our next slide, which is the next couple of them, which have to do with sort of what we spend. We're spending about $49 a day. Now this is per day they're in school. So not 365 days a year, but the days they're in school, about $49 per student per day from our general fund budget, which is by far and large the driving budget of the district. It pays almost all the salaries, all the utility, all the fixed cost, all those sorts of things. We have the 11th lowest per pupil expenditure in South Carolina. And what is sometimes very surprising to people, because they view us as a large and top-heavy bureaucracy, we spend less than 1 cent per dollar on administrative leadership district level cost. That is the lowest amount in the state of South Carolina per dollar per pupil, whichever way you wish to translate it. And you see there's some award that we've received for our financial. Basically, that award for excellence has to do with transparency and accountability. Where does all that money go? The next slide tells us that. We spend about $396 million on teachers and instructional aides. We spend about $215 million on all other employees. The largest employee groups in all other employees would be custodial maintenance, transportation, including our bus drivers, all kind of other support employees. So our lower wage employee groups predominate the all other employees section. And if you look at that last slide there, the last picture on that slide, all of our other expenditures, $57 million. That's everything else but people. That doesn't include any special revenue. Special revenue is money that you get for a particular restricted purpose, like Title I money from the federal government. Our next one talks about one of our top commitments. And this top commitment stretches not just to teachers, talks about teacher pay and retention, but it stretches to all our employees. What we do every day, all day, is for people and with people. So we need to ensure we have the best people possible. So our starting pay is $41,500 for 2021. And we were the first district in the state to exceed $40,000 for teacher pay. Our average salary, it's been updated, it's not on here, it's $55,632. You remember, these are 9-month salaries. Teachers work 190 days, but they're paid all year long, but they earn their money in the 190 days. The next one talks about what we're accomplishing with your money and through these people. You see our average SAT score. You see that compared between us and the state and us and the nation. You see our ACT score and our comparison between us and the state and the nation. One thing we're particularly proud of, you'll see the 19% increase in our graduation rate since 2012. You also see the tremendous amount of scholarship opportunities available to our graduating students. You look to the next slide, you'll see referenced what we talked about at the outset. First, looking at college credit, and you will see that in 16-17, our students earned about 16,000 hours of college credit through AP and dual credit. From 16-17 to the 19-20 year, that increased to 21,000 hours of college credit, which translates into a huge savings for families. As you look at the next slide, it looks a little bit at the other aspect of Graduation Plus. The number of industry certifications we have. 16-17, we had 601 earned certifications. These are predominantly seniors, just like the college credit. 2021, 6,500 certifications. All kinds of certifications, welding, cosmetology, barbering, things related to building trades. So you see a tremendous increase in certifications going directly to better preparing our students to directly enter the workforce or go on to advanced training in those areas. The next one, and one that's really very driven by a partnership we've had now with the Chamber for a few years, and those are paid co-ops, internships, and apprenticeships. And you see how we went from 43 in 18 to 332. The biggest message I like for people to see there, though, is down there at the bottom where it says we had 650 applicants for 63 slots. We need more companies, businesses, and individual-owned businesses and enterprises being willing to take our interns. And the best recommendation I can give you for that is to contact either somebody at the Chamber or one of our work-based learning coordinators, and they'll let you talk to companies that have had experiences with these students. And I think you will quickly be impressed with how well that's worked out for the company, the student, and for the future of the economy in our area. So that sort of concludes who we are, where we are, what we're trying to do, and the progress we're making now. Now, all of that is being tempered by the COVID environment in which we're operating. And the next slide talks about our reopening. Full-time, in person, with an option for a full-time virtual program. Masks and vaccines are not required for students or employees. We are doing contact tracing, quarantines, and isolations as required by DHEC. We're maintaining 3 feet of social distancing between students. That is following the DHEC recommendation. Up until this year, it was 6 feet. So if students are 3 feet apart, they are not considered close contact, i.e. if a person tests positive, a student tests positive, if you're outside as another student, 3 feet of that student, you don't have to quarantine. The 6-foot rule still applies for adults. We're not deploying plexiglass because the advantage to plexiglass wasn't cut the 6 feet to 3 feet. We now have the 3 feet without plexiglass based on the DHEC recommendations. We follow guidance from DHEC. We get guidance and input into all the things that we do from PRISMA, from Bon Secours St. Francis, from the Medical University of South Carolina, in addition to DHEC. All right, if you look at some of the other things on the next slide, volunteers and visitors will be permitted in school buildings. Schools may host events and activities such as family fun night, dances, that comes later in the year. Open houses will occur both in person and remotely. Every school is required to provide both an in-person and a virtual open house opportunity for parents. We do not have capacity restrictions on spectator sports or other after-school events, as they are attendance at those events is voluntary in nature. We will continue to frequently disinfect high-touch surface areas and commons areas, and we disinfect the entire building by spray every evening when the building is no longer occupied by students and employees other than the custodial staff. We have extremely highly efficient and effective air handling systems in all of our buildings. We're continuing some enhanced practices with those, extending the amount of time we operate in occupied mode, which means that temperature level of comfort for occupancy. But on average, every space in every building in Greenville County Schools, there is a total exchange with fresh air 3 times every hour while they're occupied or in occupied status. We also have humidistats in those systems to control the level of humidity. So,
Dr. Royster, I don't want to ruin your flow. You are communicating a very robust reopening plan, which I think should reasonably assure the folks on this Zoom and others throughout the community. I do want to take a moment to encourage our folks who are on this Zoom to submit any questions you may have via the chat feature, and we'll try to we'll certainly try to answer that. So, Dr. Royster, it seems as though, and you may have more information on subsequent slides, but it really seems as though you're putting forth best effort to keep your students and your staff safe as they return to school this fall.
We're certainly fully confident we're doing so, and I think there's some slides later on. We won't get into all the details, but they're there for people to read them if they'd like. We're fairly tightly constrained in the actions we can take because of some actions of our General Assembly that restricts those things. But we do believe that we have in place those precautions that health and medical authorities and experts recommend that we do. The other thing that we do, we touched on it just briefly, we're offering a 100% virtual program for any parent who feels like that's the best choice for their child. Now, that might be the best choice having nothing to do with COVID, but right now probably has a lot to do with COVID. We currently have just under 3,000 students enrolled in 100% virtual. Now, that is a program taught exclusively by our Greenville County Schools teachers assigned to the virtual program, either by class period at the secondary level or by whole class, whole day at the elementary level. We think that offers a great opportunity for parents who have perhaps a greater concern about their child being present in school. And we certainly also encourage parents to talk with their medical provider, to talk with their physician about vaccine, and to talk with them about masking. What advice can your physician offer you to consider to be in the best interest of your child? And certainly encourage you to have that conversation and to make decisions based on the advice of your medical provider.
All right.
One of the things that,
go ahead, Dr. Royster.
One of the things that people also ask about, what are we doing? They like to use the frame to talk about learning loss. Well, there's not really a learning loss based on this pandemic, but there's some missed learning because of a reduced amount of time in some cases, students having to move from one mode or to another. So the next slide talks about a number of the things that we are doing in order to try to compensate for that missed learning. So before and after school remediation offered in all elementary, middle, and high schools, small group tutoring, supplemental pay for teachers to carry that out. CARES Act funding utilized to hire 49 interventionists. Interventionists are simply teachers that work exclusively in the areas of reading and math with students who are not up to speed in those areas. They pull them from regular classroom time and work intensively with them in those areas. We have extra help and remediation available during the school day for high school virtual program students as well, both in person and remotely. We've done extensive summer credit and content recovery opportunities for all levels in virtual and in person. And we've hired these interventionists, additional interventionists for the upcoming school year. Intervention is a strategy we utilize all the time. It is a proven, effective strategy to advance student achievement. And all the things that we're doing to try to offset this loss that people like to refer to, we want to refer to as missed learning opportunities, they're grounded in the practices that we know over time have proven to be effective. Now, the next few slides really have to do with, without going into great detail, but these are the mentioned earlier constraints under which we must operate. So people ask us, well, sometimes we get inquiries from the community. Why can't we require masks? Here's the answer why we can't require masks. By Act of the proviso 1.108 of the South Carolina General Assembly. You can certainly read that for yourself. And the next one is another one which limits our ability to accommodate individuals in the virtual program, but we've made the decision that even if it incurs some financial penalty for us, if we exceed 5% of our total student population, we're still going to serve those students. And we will use ESSER funding, the federal ESSER funding, to replace or offset any increased costs there. You see some others related to digital learning. You see in the next slide that we have to offer 5-day in-person for every student, which limits our ability to say, well, some of you stay at home to give us more room in the classroom, and some of you come, we have to offer it 5 days for every student. So those are sort of those constraints we mentioned earlier, and that concludes really the things that I had prepared to make certain that I shared with the group, but now certainly available for any question that any participant might have, Carlos, or you may have some additional questions as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Royster. And just as an FYI, Dr. Royster, your audio was fading in and out. So I don't know if you're in a position where you're talking, it's very clear. I'll probably ask you not to move, to just okay, like right there, don't move.
So you're clear right now.
I'm clear right now.
Okay.
All right. One question that we've got from our chat feature, and it's from the Girl Scouts organization. They want to know about outside organizations being able to return to the facilities. What's the status there?
At this point, we are allowing that. Now, everything we talk about today could certainly change based on what we continue to experience with the virus. So we may have to go back to a tighter restriction on outside groups coming in. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're allowing that needs to be coordinated with the principals in each school. Mm-hmm. Now, some of them may very well say, hey, we're not quite ready to start that back day one, week one. Because one thing we have to always think about, we went an entire year with principals serving district-wide only about 60% of their normal population in person in the building. So they're having to adapt to a new environment to deal with COVID. And now they're back with closer to 100% of the number of students. So we're going to have to allow them a little bit of a transition period to make that adjustment. So it may not be day one, week one, but that needs to be coordinated directly with the principal of the school in which that organization wishes to have a relationship or previously had a relationship.
Got it. Thank you. Earlier, you were talking about some of the restrictions from placed on you by the state legislature. What, if any, circumstances could you see your reopening or your return plan changing, Dr. Royster?
I think some of the things that we talked about, that you can have gatherings within the school, you can have public events outside, where basically parents can come in and no, we're not going to allow this until after Labor Day, again, kind of give schools an opportunity to get on their feet. A lot of times parents want to come in and have lunch with their children. We're going to allow that. Those kinds of things we may have to scale back if we see really surges in cases. We also would see potentially with isolations in a school and quarantines. Isolation is if you test positive, mm-hmm. you got to be at home because you're isolated. If you're inside that 3 feet, could be quarantined. If you have too many of those, it might cause us to have to make some changes. People may recall that before the governor shut down every school in the state of South Carolina on March the 16th of the year before last, we had begun to walk back and sort of tighten up to be more within ourselves. In other words, we weren't doing anything but having students come to school and go to class. We were slowly advancing to a more restrictive environment. That could possibly happen as cases increase. Still maintaining individual classroom instruction in person, but retracting some of these other things. If that number really grows, you don't want to put all the students together, probably in the gym, to talk to them, even if you're able to keep them 3 feet apart. It would be things like that. Man, I want to be out on field trips, not allowing others from the outside to come in. There could be a number of changes like that that circumstances would dictate. And one thing that we've learned throughout this process is change can come swiftly, and advice can often be conflicting. And so we try to operate where we make decisions as quickly as reasonably possible, realizing that the decision we make affect a number of people, and they have to make plans in accord with that. But sometimes we don't have the luxury of saying, well, in 3 weeks, we're going to do this. Sometimes it's had to be tomorrow, we're going to have to do this. Because our first responsibility is to the safety and security of everyone in our care. And that's the approaching now 76,000 students and the more than 10,000 employees. That is our very first primary responsibility, is their safety and security.
And Dr. Royster, those changes, those adjustments that could be made, can those decisions be made locally, or would that be driven again by the governor and legislators?
Anything not covered in those constraints that we shared with the group would be a local decision. Now, there is always a potential, as with any other contagious disease, DHEC can order a school to be closed. The most common reason that had happened up until this pandemic was for meningitis. That was the most common reason that ever happened. A few years ago, there was an outbreak of TB in a particular school district in the upstate, and that resulted in a closure ordered by DHEC. They have some statutory authority regarding public health to make those kinds of decisions.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the chat. Did the South Carolina legislature request input from the school districts before passing their provisos?
Some of our local legislators requested input. We provided input without being requested, but some of this moved very quickly. Got it.
Another question. You stated that the virtual option is available to any parent who wants it. But if there are about 3,000 students currently enrolled in that virtual option, what is the realistic capacity of that virtual program?
We've made the decision that, I think we referenced earlier, there's this 5% cap for which we incur a financial penalty if we exceed it. We're going to accept that financial penalty, replace it with federal ESSER funds, and we will hire, to our ability to find them, enough teachers to staff the virtual program for the request that we have. So really, I can't say this is a hard and fast number, because we don't know until we have to start adding teachers how many we can find this time of the year. And we would want to minimize having to transfer a teacher from brick and mortar to virtual, because it obviously disrupts other students. And there's only a certain number we can move and maintain our pupil-teacher ratios in the building, because like other things, students don't move in the same manner in which we assign teachers. So if we assign teachers at a particular grade at a level of 20-1, we're not going to have 20 students in that grade move somewhere that we can send that teacher with them. Maybe 7 of them will move and 13 are left, so we still got to teach the 13.
All right. I'm going to ask you a question that's not on the script, and it wasn't submitted via the chat.
Okay.
I know every year I have the honor of presenting to potential teachers, folks you're recruiting to fill your teacher positions. And each year the room is full of prospects.
Yes, sir.
But that still, even if you hired every one of those teachers, it still would not be enough to fill all of your teacher vacancies.
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead. You might not finish your question.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how has the pandemic further exacerbated that situation for you?
It's really just it's further complicated, as you might imagine. We've really still been pretty successful in recruiting teachers. I believe right now we're sitting about 49 short district-wide. Now, when I say 49, that's me calling HR saying how many positions are open.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be recommendations to fill those positions in the pipeline, so to speak. Principals done interviews, made a recommendation. It's moving through the various checks in the system, not yet counted as filled. So yeah, let's say conservatively, probably about half that number are filled. That's a little bit higher than a week before school in a usual year, but not when you consider we got about 6,000 teachers, not a huge number. There's also a more exacerbated difficulty in finding special ed teachers. We always have a difficult time finding a sufficient number of them. That's right now our greatest difference in that higher category, finding them. Interestingly, this year, one of the areas in which we have the most difficult time recruiting enough candidates are subject areas at the secondary level, particularly math and science. And we have very few vacancies right now in that. But we have, and I know you're probably familiar with this, but others may not be, we have our own state-approved program, GATE, which allows us to take individuals with 4-year degrees in particular subject areas that are not certified to teach, bring them into our system, train them to be teachers. We have about 52 individuals going through that program this year, and that's about double what we normally have. So we have a number, for example, we have a number of people trained to be an engineer that are in that program being certified to become math or science teachers. So that has really helped us at the secondary level, particularly where you're certified by subject area. And we have approval for certain subject areas to be done that way. So that has really helped us with that. And we certainly are constantly looking, particularly if there might be those listening to this morning that maybe they thought they always wanted to teach and they spent 3 years, 5 years, or 25 years doing something else. You got a background in one of those areas, we would love to talk to you about what would you like to come teach? One of the best teachers I ever hired a number of years ago when I was a principal had been a vice president of a large national corporation, but he had always wanted to teach. Now he had to go through the regular process to become a teacher and take coursework and that sort of thing. This was before the days of alternative certifications, but he was one of the best teachers I've worked with in my career because he was so committed to wanting to do that.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Royster. And that's an excellent, your response presents an excellent segue to my closing question for you. The Greenville Chamber is proud to be a strategic partner with Greenville County Schools. And looks like we'll be strengthening that as we move forward. How can Greenville County's business community further help and assist you in achieving your goals?
I'll tell you, one of the biggest things, if you think back to that slide we shared about how many students, how many young people we have who want to take advantage of a paid internship, co-op, or apprenticeship, we need businesses to be on board with that. And I think I saw some of the chat as it came across, a little bit hard to follow all of it as we're talking back and forth, but I saw somebody that commented on what a good experience they had had in their particular business or enterprise with our interns, apprenticeships, co-ops, students like that. We actually use them in the district itself. We've had them in HVAC and maintenance. We've had them in our communications department. We've had them in our food and nutrition services department. So we also practice what we preach. We want to hire them internally, but we need, when you got 650 people out there eager to do this, we'd like to say we got a place for everybody. And that's the biggest thing they can do. And to just in general, as the chamber is such an excellent partner in doing so, support what we're doing. Let us know how we can do a better job, but also help us communicate our successes.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll certainly do that, Dr. Royster. You have a lot of successes to share, and we certainly want to help you communicate that. Any closing thoughts for today's call?
Well, really to that comment, Carlos, everything that we do, we can do a better job of it if we do it in partnership. The school district, home, and the community. When all of that comes together, you cannot help but have a quality and a successful program. No, any one of us individually, nor any one of those entities individually can accomplish that, but together we certainly can. And whatever success that we have had, it has been as a result of those kind of partnerships and the effort of those 10,000 employees that go out and get the work done, despite whatever the latest distraction might be, whether it's a pandemic or something else. So thank you again. I so much appreciate this opportunity today. And we very much appreciate the willingness of the chamber to partner with us in helping us to make Greenville an even better place than it is and to continue the economic development successes that we're having.
Well, Dr. Royster, thank you for all that you've done for Greenville County Schools, and for our students. Especially want to thank you for carving time out to be with us today, considering the school year is fast approaching. So again, thank you. Also want to thank our attendees for joining us today. A recording of this call will be shared on the Greenville Chamber's website and sent to attendees along with a survey. And we ask that you please complete that survey, as that is very important to creating content for future Community Matters programs. So please share your feedback with us. I want to thank all of you for all you do for our community. Let's continue to practice healthy behaviors, mask up, keep social distancing, wash your hands. Let's make sure that not only we start the school year safely, but that we can continue the school year in a safe fashion. Thank you all. Have a great week.
Thank you.